Something that's, kind of bitchy.
Bitchy?
Pretty bitchy.
Bitchy? I know.
Great, keep that bitchy energy.
Well, first of all, you're a little bitchy. That's next level bitchy.
All right, everybody. So welcome back to Bitchy History. I am here with Lindsay Denninger, who has written a book on Gossip Girl, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about that today. I have to admit, Gossip Girl came out during a period of time where I was still in my I'm not like other girls phase, so I didn't really, I was like, oh, I'm not going to watch a girly show. I'm not going to do that. So I never really got around to watching it very much. But I have seen a lot about it. There's a lot of clips on TikTok now. So I've kind of gotten some context for it now. So if you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the book.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lindsay Denninger. I wrote a book about Gossip Girl because it's the show that, I don't know, is the most formative and sort of prescient into the world we are in now in terms of social media. Also, I really like the show and I watched it from beginning to unfortunately end. And I don't mean that as I was sad it ended. It needed to end at that point. I watched every season, every episode, and, just fell in love with sort of the vibe and the drama. And then, you grow up and you look at these shows and you say, oh, that's like what it was like then, or how could we compare this to now? And, and stuff like that. So I decided to write a whole book about it. I did some interviews, I did a lot of digging, a lot of history about the show. And I look at a lot of what would we do today? How could it survive today? That sort of lens.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really interesting. Anybody who listens to the podcast or reads my Substack knows that I love doing cultural analysis. So my first master's degree was in history, but I wrote it on Star Trek as a cultural artifact. So I feel I know exactly what you're coming from on that perspective of when something is written in such a specific time period, it becomes like a time capsule where you can kind of unpick what was going on in society from the things that they were talking about in the show. Yeah. I think Gossip Girl does seem like it's a really interesting look at, especially kind of that early post-feminism in a lot of ways, because it's coming out in 2007. It would kind of reach this period in America, especially where it was, we don't need feminism anymore. Third wave's kind of petering out, and so it is this post-feminism era. So what can you kind of tell me what you think about that in the context of the feminist movement in America?
Yeah, as a child of the 80s and late 80s, early 90s, and coming to my formative years in that sort of time, I could say that we still really did need feminism in 2007, for God's sakes. This is too just a couple years off of, Katherine Heigl getting raked over the coals for complaining about Knocked Up, and Jessica Simpson being fat because she wore high-waisted jeans, and Britney Spears, 2007 was when she shaved her head and, attacked a car with an umbrella because the paparazzi wouldn't leave her alone. And, we have the context of that situation then, but we were watching these women be absolutely set up to fail in so many ways. So the fact that, and even if you look at Serena on the show, she could wear these little Hervé Leger bandage dresses, and she had money and she was young and free and whatever, and then she was still called a tramp and a slut the entire show. When I talk a little bit about it in the book, that the lore of her being a socialite happened because she was photographed in a white t-shirt on a boat, a wet t-shirt contest a few years before in the south of France, and she would have been 14 when those photos were taken.
Wow.
So I'm now, and those sort of details slipped or didn't land when I was watching the show the first time. But that you're right in saying that was this sort of area of oh, we don't need feminism anymore, but really it was a period in time in which women were they're you're equal, you're just supposed to sit there and take it now, when really there was a different conversation that we should have been having.
Yeah, is it that era where we start to see the boss babe kind of thing? Everybody is, you can do anything if you just put your mind to it without even addressing any of the systemic problems that were still there. It's just, I think many of us were guilty of being yes, this is the best, this is great, everything's going great, and then later on looking back and being oh no, this was really bad. So one of the things I think is really interesting about Gossip Girl, from what I was reading in your book, is how it kind of previewed the idea of internet subcultures and internet culture, because it's always weird to me when I talk to people who are younger than me. Like I'm in university again, getting another master's, and so many of the students are much younger than I am. And they just do not understand how different internet culture is now than it was when I was growing up. Like I didn't have a Facebook until I was like 17 years old. I didn't have a MySpace page. I didn't text. Like none of this stuff was a thing when I was growing up in the early 2000s. So Gossip Girl really, it was prescient in a lot of ways about that kind of culture. What do you think that it, predicted or got right about what the culture's like these days?
I have a post coming out on Monday on my own Substack preview.
I'll restack that for everybody.
But it sets up this sort of like panopticon that we have now of like Big Brother's always watching those kinds of things, but it really like set up in a way, not that the characters on Gossip Girl didn't live their lives or like they existed or whatever, but they always knew that they were being watched, and sometimes they modify their behavior accordingly. Like I was just reading another article about how Gen Z like won't dance or go to clubs or whatever. I mean, I'm 38, so I'm solidly a millennial. And like, they don't go out because they're so afraid of being perceived and being put on the internet and being made fun of. When we were using the internet, and I say we as like we're the same age, like I don't know, we were just like looking on eBaum's World at funny videos, and like I wasn't like, it was like just it wasn't like this. We were in chat rooms and like maybe talking to strangers, and it wasn't nearly as like nefarious.
At least we didn't think it was nearly as nefarious. I remember some conversations I had on AOL. We are about the same age. I'm 35. So I definitely remember some conversations that in retrospect were definitely not okay, that it should not have been happening when I was like 14 or 15. But definitely.
Little sus. I think too, the thing about Gossip Girl that's interesting is that those characters being like our approximate age, they do things online and then they also operate in the real world. So they have that sort of duality of like, this exists in real time and real space, and they go and have physical conversations and stuff also because the show would not be interesting if it was only online, like it's just them texting. But we had very much the same way. It was like the family computer, the family this, like it was one isolated place that you would go on the internet and then leave and go hang out with your friends or go do other things. That's partly why I think that the reboot didn't work, because of like how people use technology differently now. But I think that was one of the things that like from then it was like the internet was just a place and it wasn't always on. So like we were able to visit and then we left. And right now, like it's all consuming, all knowing, all everything all the time. And I am not surprised now seeing all the talk about, especially this new year, about that brick thing that like shuts your phone off and like going back to more analog spaces, because like Gossip Girl was the first show that said they're watching and they're always watching in not like a government spy kind of way, and in just a regular everyday kind of way.
Right, you're just being observed all the time. And it's, I remember back during the pandemic, there was somebody I followed on TikTok who made a post about like when it was getting back to sweater weather, and she's like, oh, it's time for big sweater weather, which is great because I don't want to be perceived. And I was like, it's exactly how I feel in public all the time, where it's just like, who might be taking photos or who might be recording. And I'm living in the UK right now, and bless them, they have many positives, but the CCTV culture is quite aggressive here. And so it's not just like the public watching, but it is like just generally like anybody could be, at any point, something I do out in public could be perceived. And that's not fun. I do like the idea of going back to more analog. I know people are talking about like having like an analog bag. It's where they keep their, their hobbies. And I'm like, that I've had that for ages. It's just my crochet bag.
I was going to say, it's called my crafting room or my crafting bag. Like, I'm always carrying it around. My professors, thank God, they have realized that my ADHD is the type that if I'm doing something with my hands, I'm actually listening. And so I have actually made entire sweaters throughout the semester. It's hilarious. I'll show up at the end of the semester wearing it, and they're like, "Oh my God, is that what you were working on this whole time?" But I spend a lot more time with my phone on Do Not Disturb, Yeah.
or like on focus mode or things like that. The only people, like my sister, my parents,
Mhm.
you know, a couple of apps that are important, like email or something like that, are
Yeah.
come through, but everything else gets shunted out because I
Yeah.
don't want to be constantly, you know, inundated
No.
with all of
No, not
and
at all.
so yeah, thank God I'm not a socialite. Nobody's tracking me down to take pictures of me, but
Yeah.
but that would be horrible. But it is
Yeah.
essentially what's happening to a lot of us these days.
Yeah.
So I know that some of the criticism of the show, I kind of looked up some articles about it, was about how like all these girls were just these very out of touch, rich, kind
Yeah.
of elitist figures, and
Yeah.
I just think that's really, really interesting, especially for the time period where the show was coming out.
Yeah.
It started in 2007, and I very, very much remember the housing collapse. I lived in Arizona at the time, so it really, you know, took out the state.
Yeah.
I wonder how much the show was affected by that, and how much people's reaction to the show were affected by that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, the show premiered in 2007. The writer's strike kind of took out its legs for a little bit, or like they weren't able to produce new episodes. And then that's when people started watching the rerun. And then you hit 2008, like you said, with the housing crisis. And then that was Occupy Wall Street. That was people downtown in Zuccotti Park here in New York. And, you know, living in tents, protesting the people who had gotten us to that point. Might be getting us there again. We'll see. Who's to say?
We learned nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think that it did affect the show. Amanda Lasher, one of the writers and producers, I spoke to her for a little bit, and she said that they were cognizant of that, like because it became like glamorizing the rich and going to butter on Tuesday nights, and then sort of like this, not quite Eat the Rich. I think Eat the Rich is more 2015, 2020-ish kind of thing. But there was a definitive thing where it became like they were aware of it, but I don't know that it like would change the storyline, because I guess if you were looking for it would become more escapism than anything else. Like I don't know if any of us were modeling our lives after Chuck Bass or anything like that. Like it wasn't going to happen. But they were aware of it in the writer's room, and you know, at the end of the day, it is still just fiction and still just a show. I don't think they were going to have like, I mean, they could have had Vanessa down there protesting and like sleeping in tents downtown, but she also loved the Upper East Side and spent plenty of time there, even though she hated it. So
yeah, I think one of the things that I just think is very, very fascinating about it is some of the critiques I saw of the show when it was out, or things like that, where it was like they were talking about like, oh, poor little rich girl, like all these girls are having all these problems, but really, do they have problems, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that affected somewhat people watching it, and almost having, I don't know, kind of Schadenfreude, like, oh, they're all rich, but they're all being, you know, stalked and having all these problems. And so it's not always great to have money kind of situation.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Chuck Bass, so I want to talk a little bit about early
Chuck
2000s sexual politics. And what was going on in the show for that. So I don't know too much about the relationships in the show, except for some of the clips I've seen on TikTok. And there were some choices being made there with those characters.
Yeah, there were a lot of choices made, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think it really the show really says about kind of the sexual politics of the era?
I mean, Chuck tries to assault Jenny Humphrey in like minute 35 of the show. Like in the pilot episode, he tries to attack her. Actually, he tries to attack Serena too, like before that, because he like got a grilled cheese sandwich made for her at his hotel. Like, oh, okay, like now you have to sleep with me.
So he's an indiscriminate douchebag. He just goes after everybody.
Exactly. Anything that moves. I mean, like he's sleeping with his father's employees, which we know is like not a balanced relationship, even if it's like verbally consensual. It's not, because he can have them fired. So in that way, it's like very much like men can, and it was in the time, like men can do what they want. They can sleep with who they like, even like, you know, is she too young? Not really. Like, remember the countdown that they had for the Olsen twins before they turned 18? Like that was very much in that time of like men. And I mean, I don't know what's changed, but men can still do what they want and sleep around, and assaults aside, like even consensual sex, men can sleep around and, you know, do horrible things to women and whatever, but as long as they say like I love you or something, then like it makes it all better. Whereas like Serena was slut shamed the entire show, even though she really only had like 2 boyfriends, three serious boyfriends, we'll say. There were like flavors of the week here and there, but which is not different than like watching Knocked Up or watching any of the other media that we consume that like, you know, boys.
Women date. They don't just, this is not a situation like, you know, in our grandparents serve a day where it's like you meet the love of your life in high school and you get married and then you stay together your whole life, but that's really just because you couldn't get divorced. But you know, those kind of things. And so I know you talk a bit in the book about the romanticization of his character. And I kind of want to talk about how that plays into issues that we're seeing today with, you know, toxic masculinity and you know, the fact that I know that I have several friends who are teachers who are teaching like the middle school era of students, and they're noticing that kind of very toxic masculinity that's being very encouraged through the algorithm on social media. And do you feel like that kind of has fed in, it's kind of been the priming ground for this?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to connect best to the manosphere, like I think we can do it. We can get there for sure. You know, he's one of those, as a character, he's takes what he wants, like non-consensual sex, and he abuses Blair emotionally and at one point physically throughout the entire show. And like the whole thing is pointed in like from the writer's room, and then from like if you go now there's like if you go deep in the Reddit, oh, he loves her, like they're meant to be together. I mean, like, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the show that's 20 years old, but like they end up together at the end. They have a son, like everything. Like he literally sells her for his hotel, and then she's supposed to like just be happy with it and
just go along with it.
And then back then, like there's an episode where Chuck like punches a window and piece of glass cuts Blair. He doesn't hit Blair, but in the 4th season, I think. And Jonathan, like the EPs of the show were like, well, Blair knows that like Chuck would never hurt her, so it's okay that he had such an emotional reaction to like him. I don't even like at that point. I think it was like losing his hotel or whatever. Like it's like
he's having a bad day, so it's justified.
Exactly. So he was allowed to take it out on her, even in physical sense. So like the producers and writers of the show were like encouraging that and being like, well, Blair said it was okay that like he had an emotion and couldn't handle himself. So like Leighton Meester was like okay with that, and you're like okay. And then like, you know, you see him, he can't process his emotions. He's just like big man, big money, big this, which you see now like in different ways with men like Andrew Tate. And that's literally the only one in the manosphere I can really name because I see their faces and I go blank because they literally don't matter. But
I try not to like, I read enough about it, but I try not to like personalize them because I don't want to give them that attention.
Exactly. Like I might be on a list now because I said the word Andrew Tate, but like, you know, they, again, take what they want. Women like should be always backing them up no matter what. They should be obedient. They should be these things. Like women should just be grateful. And a lot of the point I think that they made with Chuck and Blair was that she like could be grateful that they're together and they're soulmates. And like this sort of like emotional manipulation is normal in a relationship. And like,
I think that, I think it's really a dangerous thing. I mean, I will say, at least in this case, they're talking about like people were kind of like justifying his anger and being like, well, okay, he had a bad thing happen, which is it's, you know, cool motive, still murder kind of situation. But it does feed into that idea that now we have in the manosphere where it's this idea that violence from men is not just something that can be justified, it's to be expected. Like that's just their right as men to do violence, regardless of whether they've had a bad day or they need therapy or whatever justification that they might have been giving in the early 2000s. And I think that's definitely a big part of that. I'm guilty of it myself. Like I'm very gay, but I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about my current hyperfixation is the pit. And we were talking about Noah Wiley's character. And my friend Nico was like, he needs to get therapy. And I just sent a GIF that was, I can fix him. And I was just like, I and she's like, you have tragic taste in men. I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing I'm a lesbian. Like, it's tragic.
Yeah. And I think
why do I want to fix
that
him? I don't know.
exactly. I think Dr. Robbie might even be in therapy and it's still not working. So like he needs like an entirely different kind of therapy, really, on that show.
He needs the man needs to be on a psych hold. That's all I've got to say. Writers, put him in a psych hold. He can't leave the hospital at the end of the season. I swear to God.
Exactly. No spoilers here for everybody who hasn't watched. Is not up to date on the pit, but like there are signs that we have to keep an eye on for right now.
Therapy. But I kind of like that in that way that we're watching a show that is showing that kind of thing where the man falling apart and being violent and lashing out at people. They're not romanticizing that. I mean, I might be romanticizing it because I have a thing for Noah Wyle. I'm sorry.
It's Noah Wyle. It's fine.
But I've been watching a lot of ER lately for my PhD research, so it's been an issue. The man has aged well. That's all I'm saying. Yes. But it's an issue where you're watching the show and it's not being romanticized in that way, where it's like, this is not okay. This is a person who is falling apart and he is not doing well, and this needs to be addressed. And I like to see that because it's a much better way of handling it. And I don't think every show is doing that now, but it's a little less prevalent to romanticize it, I think, in some modern some of the shows that are coming out more recently, where we're talking a little bit more about the importance of therapy and the importance 100%. Of actually unpacking your issues instead of just taking them out on women because you can, right?
100%. Yeah. And that like we didn't have the therapy language in the early 2000s for this, or like if we did, you were seen as like crazy because you went to therapy or whatever. So like Chuck was allowed to do what he wanted because that was just Chuck. And now like we have, and I mean, like, this is why I write these, like why we kind of examine this, because like this stuff doesn't fly, like, and it's like it's important. Yeah, exactly. It's an important to consume media as it was and as it is now, and like through these lenses. And like you have shows like Shrinking, like Jason Segel's character, like he was a mess for the first season. I mean, he's still like in season, I guess this is 3 now, but like, he's still coping with the death of his wife, and like that kind of like you said, like we're talking about how people are fucked up and how they're trying to get unfucked up. Whereas just saying like Chuck is Chuck and this is how he treats Blair and it's fine and whatever. Like
same thing with Ted Lasso, another big hyperfixation show of mine, which same thing where it's like, yes, therapy doesn't just fix you. You have to keep doing the work. It's a big thing that you have to keep going back to. I complain constantly to my sister and I'm like, why? What do you mean I have to keep going to therapy? I thought they could just fix me in one session. Like, exactly. Like, I don't want to do that. That seems like a lot of work. And my sister's just like, you need to stop it. But it is, we're seeing that more, much healthier take on therapy. And it's true. When I was growing up, the idea of going to therapy was like, oh, you tried to kill yourself, right? You're trying to, that's why you're going to therapy. Exactly. You go on your little, a psych hold and you deal with your problems and then you get out and you get back to life. Very much the way it was dealt with. And 100%. Now therapy is, I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, therapy is before you crash out. That's what you should be doing it like consistently before you have these problems. And so I'm very happy to see that we've gotten off topic, but but I'm happy to see that that's a thing. That we're starting to address that more instead of just taking it at face value that characters like this are acceptable in society.
And like we like in the early 2000s we didn't have these, so like we have this toxic masculinity, we have this manosphere, we have this like right-wing pipeline of like this algorithm that is entrapping young men today, and so we have that, but we have, and like it's funny that we're talking about Ted Lasso and Shrinking, and then I want to add the new Scrubs reboot if you haven't seen it yet. If you have,
I haven't watched it yet.
Turk in the first episode is talking about his mental health too as a physician. And those 3 shows are Bill Lawrence shows. Bill Lawrence is doing the work when it comes to like that sort of language and therapy, and that like he was good in the Scrubs, the first iteration of it too, for that kind of thing. But like we have men like him who are doing that work to sort of destigmatize mental health and show men who are struggling and who are getting help. And then you have this manosphere. So like at least there's like options for people to consume things that will help them. In 2007, like you had Chuck Bass and like
there was nothing. There was no concept of like you said, going back to like the Britney Spears thing, right? Britney Spears has a giant crash out for very valid reasons. going back, like, once in hindsight is 2020, like, we now know what was going on and all of the things that were happening in her life. But it was seen as she's crazy, and not in a way that's like, oh, she needs help. It was just in a let's point and laugh at her kind of situation. And so like, we didn't have that language at all for that.
No.
So this kind of leads me into talking about also just the way that this show and kind of how we deal with teen girls today. I don't think it's changed that much, or honestly, since the early 2000s. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with a lot of the, the idea that women's television, girls' television is kind of, again, I said I was in the cool girl phase. I'm not like other girls. I'm not going to watch this. So I definitely had that period of time. So what do you think is important about shows like Gossip Girl, or shows that are being made for young girls today, and how they are portraying being a young woman?
I don't know if there's any, I mean, it's not like I don't consume a lot of media. Obviously, I'm watching TV all the time. I don't know if we've cracked the code on it. Like, I feel like the stuff that gets the most play is like the most controversial stuff, obviously. Like, I think that you have, like, if you have Euphoria, like I say, the Gossip Girl walk, so Euphoria could run, obviously, in like a paid cable, like very intense kind of way. Because that, I don't even, like, I knew I couldn't watch that show. I still have stayed away.
I can't watch it because it's about very young people, and it makes me feel, I'm like, I can't watch a show about high school students and they're like sexploits. I can't do that. That's weird. I'm way too old for this.
It's like too grown, and like, I think that, like, if that's the example, like, that's probably the, like, salacious example, and like I don't know that one's right. I think shows like Never Have I Ever, that was the Minnie Kaling show, right, do a much better job with like the struggles of being a teen girl. But I still think that, like, we're still painting girls as tramps, and we're still like, I don't know that anybody's really like cracked in. People like Pen 15, that was more of a comedy, like, but I don't really know that we're cracking into like exactly what it's like to be a teenage girl in very many ways, because I still think that we have, like, we still look at teenage girls as women, not children. Like, you want to talk about the Epstein files, like,
exactly,
like, they're all saying that those are young women, not those. These are still children. If you're under 18, you're still a child. So like, they're like, women on TV and women in the world are not allowed to have these sorts of moments where they grow and learn and whatever else. And like, it gets like men's exploits or boys' exploits are follies and like mistakes, and they grow from it. And Brock Turner like doesn't get sentenced to jail, and like all these other things. And I don't know that like we have perfect examples on TV right now either. Like, I just think like it's an ever evolving thing, and we can push to do better. And then with this manosphere thing, we get sucked back into this sort of like shitty media for women, and then we push and we pull, and it kind of goes back and forth. But I don't know a show 100% right off the top of my head right now that like is doing a perfect job.
Yeah, and I can't honestly think of it either, which I think is really interesting, because we've been mentioning like shows that are doing the work for men. And like showing healthy masculinity, and showing that there are, that getting help isn't a problem, and all of those things, which is great. I'm not discounting any of those. They're fantastic shows, and I think they're useful for everybody, because it's, a good lesson on therapy and doing the work. But I do think it's really interesting that we're still seeing the same cyclical way of looking at girlhood, that hasn't really changed. This idea that girls are somehow, they're women, they're responsible for their actions, and they need, that they don't get the grace of being able to make mistakes or grow as people. And I think there's something in that. I'm not sure what it is yet, but maybe one day I'll write a paper on it. Because I think that's really interesting that we haven't really changed that way, in the way that we depict young women on TV, or even grown women in a lot of ways. So
and men won't consume female media, or like female-centered media. So that's why it's the same thing as like if you're a person of color and you're watching white shows, because there weren't certain shows for people. So you just have to find like what you see on TV and find it in yourself. And like, that's what women do with most media, because most media is male-centered. They're male leads, they're male this. Like, I've never lost a person like Jason Segel's character in Shrinking, but like, I see pieces of myself in that, and here and there. And like, we are just used to finding the scraps to make up a whole relatability issue. But men don't watch female media. So like, it's not going to happen in the way until we can get them to see women as people, which, you know,
Yeah.
I know is a big deal, but
Exactly. Women are people. Surprise, shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do like it. I've been on Threads a lot with the Pit fandom, and one person who posted the other day, it said something like, you guys all want complex, you keep saying you want complex female characters, but you can't even handle Dr. Santos. And I'm like, yeah, we need to talk about that, because you do not want self-actualized, like, people, women with complex problems working through them. You want perfection from them.
Yeah.
And you're not willing to give them the same amount of, like, leeway to work through their shit as a male character is given.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
So I know that the show still has a lot of people in its kind of, you know, in its grasp. It was incredibly popular when it was on. It's still syndicated. It's still popular. Obviously, you've got a book about it, right? So there's clearly interest in it.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are still so obsessed with the show?
Millennials, well, just from a bracket range, millennials love nostalgia. So I feel like, you know, these shows are comfort shows. I watch the OC all the time. I watch Gilmore Girls all the time. I watch Gossip Girl all the time, because it stops me from thinking about the tire fire out there. So like, that's what I put on. I know how it ends. It's like, I know it's like a nervous system thing.
Yeah.
But I like to watch it. I like to relive it. From what I hear about people who are younger and discovering the show, and they weren't even really alive when the show was on. It's fun, it's sexy, the clothes, it's like there's some sort of like yearning for like a simpler time in that like wasn't really simple, as we were talking about, like the entire bottom crashed out of the economy in that moment.
Right.
But it seems simple and it seems fun and like soapy and carefree. I mean, everybody's good to look at. Like
they're all pretty, they're all, you know.
Exactly, like obvious diversity issues in terms of sexuality and race, but like that's also par for the course for most shows at that time, which is an entirely different conversation. But
we could write an entire second book on that.
I was gonna say, like, but you know, sexy, fun, cute people, clothes, drama, and everybody loves a soap. Like the sort of feelings that you have from a teen show are eternal. Like, I still feel out of place and awkward sometimes in my adult life, and I don't know who I'm gonna sit with at lunch and whatever. So like, those sorts of feelings that everybody have never go away. These people are just like much better looking and having them, and they're more fun to watch.
Yeah, and it is kind of nice to watch them struggling. You're like, well, it's fine if I'm struggling, because if even Blake Lively can't, you know, get her shit together, then I guess you know, it's fine if I can't, right?
Yeah.
Like they're fabulously wealthy and popular and everything, and they're still having problems, so it's fine if I'm still haven't figured things out when I'm 35, you know.
Exactly.
That kind of situation. So I think that is very true. I do love my nostalgia shows. It is very much a nervous system thing.
Yep.
I am not enjoying. For the first time, I'm remembering how stressful it is to watch a show that's coming out week to week, and I don't know what's going to happen next, and I'm just like having a heart palpitations constantly. I go back to rewatching Alias constantly, because that's been my comfort show, which is a weird comfort show to have, I admit. Let's watch, you know, let's randomly watch bad wigs and spy hijinks. That's what I do.
I mean, I watch Scandal a lot, so like it's the same thing. Like it's
for sure.
Yeah, I get it.
Those are great shows. Yeah, such good writing in these shows too. Like I enjoy the characters. And it's not even the plot lines necessarily that I always enjoy in the show. Sometimes it's just like there's like one or two characters, and you're like, I just love the way that they deal with things.
Yeah,
and it's so much fun. Scandal's like that for me, where it's like the plots. I'm not worried about the plots. The plots might not make sense all the time, but the rest of it, you know, I've got some tragic attraction to characters in those shows too. So want to let people know where to get your book?
My book, it's called You Know You Love Me, How Gossip Girl Changed Pop Culture as We Know It, which is important for everyone to know. It's available wherever books are sold. If you still shop at Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, basically anywhere. A lot of local bookstores are selling it now. I'm hearing a lot of small independents are stocking it. So wherever you'd like to get it, it's available on ebook, audiobook, if that's your vibe, if you want to listen to it. And it's a fun deep dive for sort of what the show means to people and what it means to the culture at large.
Yeah, and it was really interesting, even for me, who had not, like, I don't have the context of having watched the show. I was really interested in it. Now I'm kind of like, okay, when am I going to take the time to actually, like, you know, pull this up and start watching it? Possibly, we'll see. I've got so many. I've got so many things. I have 15 seasons of ER to get through for my PhD, so it's a lot. I made very foolish decisions on what my PhD topic was.
I know. And that's a 24 episode regular basic 1990s cable season. That's not 10 episodes of Ted Lasso every 4 years.
Exactly. I can handle that. That's fine. This is like, oh no, I'm just gonna have to like pop it up and like run it 2 times speed and try to get through all the episodes because it's too much to get through.
Yep.
But it'll be fun regardless. All right, yes, and here at Bitchy History, we do encourage buying from local bookstores if you have the option. However you get the book is fine, but you know, if you have the option to buy it local, please do.
Yes, and a question that people do ask is, does it matter how much royalties I get based on where you buy it? It does not. A bought book is a bought book. So wherever, like you just said, if you're comfortable, and it will be released in the UK this summer. I'm looking at the date right now. It'll be available in the UK as well if your listeners are there too, because that's where you're sitting. Yeah. Where that release is, I think, next month. I have to do the date.
Excellent. So. I'll keep in mind and post a link when it's up and let people know. So before we close off, I asked you lots and lots of questions. Is there anything about the book that you want to talk about that you didn't have a chance to say about the book or the research or the process of writing it? Anything?
Yeah. Well, we were just saying it's really hard to watch every episode of a show back to back like that. I will say that.
It is.
No, it was a lot of fun to write. I think it's really interesting. And like, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, well, you love this show. And then you tear it to shreds in certain parts. And then but like, I think that's what you can do with things you love and places you love and people you love. Like that's sort of like, I respect it enough to be able to critique it. And that's what some of this is here. I had a lot of fun writing it. It was fun to talk to some of the cast members and also to put my own spin on like where I think the characters would be now and that kind of thing. So if you, there's a little bit about the history of TV in there, if you want to learn a little bit more about that. So if that's your speed, you should definitely pick it up.
For sure. I am going to put some links up when I post the episode so everybody will be able to access it easy and get that. And of course, let me know if there's any like social media if you want me to link up when we're done as well. So all right. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me about this. I think it's a really fun book. And I'm not just saying that because I'm also writing a book on pop culture and media. I'm not just saying that, but you know. A little self-serving, but I love writing about pop culture. That's just what I do. So
all these books are fun. What am I going to write about? Something more? I mean, this is serious. Pop culture. Like
I know.
People don't respect female-centered media, but also they don't really respect popular media. Like it's popular for a reason. It matters for a reason. So let's just talk about it.
It's the reason that I'm working on talking about medical dramas for my PhD, which is because it is what we consume, and those things they shape parts of our brain of how we deal with things, how we accept things, how we believe in society. So I think it's incredibly important. So
absolutely,
great job, love the book, and I hope everybody buys a copy of it.
Me too, please. Thank you.
Please buy.
History.
History. History. History.
What a bitch, right?